A dog barks when his master is attacked. I would be a coward if I saw that God's truth is attacked and yet would remain silent. John Calvin.
Get in a long tube with a bunch of demons.
Really believe that human beings are demons.
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did.
This is my Bible. I am what it says I am.
There's probably a balance between, I believe you have to know Christ, but...
God, he's in hell. He is. And someone knows this for sure.
all of mankind is going to end up somewhere in heaven.
My mission really is to just help people of faith, especially, to re-examine this issue, to realise the church has got things wrong in the past.
For those who are God's by faith in his Son.
Corinthians, right? 2 Corinthians 3:7.
Victory in the name which is above every name.
There's no exception for rape or incest. It's an extreme law. And
right now, bones, ligaments, tendons, in Jesus' name. Get out here right now.
So put your trust in the sovereign risen king, who doesn't owe you one cotton picking thing. And yet he still promises to furnish his disciples, but we take what he's created and we turn him into idols. I'll never back down, so how can I keep it in? But you'll never see me preaching the sin of TBM. Yeah, spirit and truth is worship viewed in this chemistry, but some are spewing distorted views of the Trinity. They're with the enemy, their lies have been bought. Whether you like it or not, you will either get shot. No reverence from these reverends, only pathetic benevolence, who claims to heal without a shred of medical evidence. They in the public side, lukewarmer than kitchens. On live television saying Mormons are Christians. I'm not throwing stones, I'm simply shouting the truth. So if you never knew, now you're without an excuse. If you still wanna play with them cards, then let's run them. Cause even Satan speaks through others like Jeff Dunham. So who are you with? Denies a gray area. Don't make another preacher lie when they bury ya.
If you're going to heaven and you know you ain't got no sin in your life, it's time to die.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Master's Dog, episode 69. I'm your host, the Evangelical Norm. So today we're getting back to Saints Unscripted and their faith and belief section, responding to that. And David we had a couple of weeks where there was some really deep, important stuff that I was shocked that they actually talked about on the internet. I mean, they can't get away from it. You really can't get away from the whole issue of, do Mormons believe they can become gods? You can't not talk about it anymore. And it's almost, it's futile to try to defend it, but they have to do it. So continuing, there's just going to be more and more of this stuff that they have to try to defend. They have to figure out a way to spin it, but they can't. Today is really kind of another nothing burger that really isn't. I mean, I'll let David talk about it, but excuse me. It's we're going to talk about the Jaredite barges, and not specifically the Jaredite barges, but the light supposedly within it. So with that, I mean, it's really just a side note in the midst of just so many other things that are wrong with the Jaredite barges. This is kind of a softball. I'm trying to think of what the term I want to use. Not a softball, but I mean it's a soft pitch to try to hit. It's on a tee. It's a tee ball, right? I mean, it really. Again, I'm gonna let him get into it and we'll go, but it's easier to try to defend the light within the Jaredite barges as opposed to all the other issues, the weight, the watertight, the moving parts of a door and being watertight and so on. So there's all kinds of things that are problematic with the Jaredite barges. and yet they choose to defend this. So with that all being said, I'm going to let David go ahead and jump in and tell you what he thinks about the light within the Jaredite barges.
Hey guys, welcome back. So to give a little context to what we're going to talk about today, remember that after the story of Noah's Ark and the flood, Noah's descendants get into a little mischief when they attempt to build a tower tall enough to get to heaven. As a consequence of their wickedness, their languages get all scrambled around, and it's at this point that we meet a group of people later known as the Jaredites, as recorded in the Book of Mormon, led by a man known as the brother of Jared.
Oh, you're using their made-up names.
Okay, and again, they're throwing in a Marvel comic clip to try to make it a little bit of humorous. Why would you name a group out of? I mean, every other group is named after the person that led it. The Nephites, the Lamanites, and so on, and the Amalekites and the Hittites and all these other things. Why would you name the Jaredites after the brother of Jared? If they were led by him, does he have a name? He's just known as the brother of Jared. And who is Jared? Did he go to Jared? Did he eat Subway? Okay, see, now I'm doing the same thing, just trying to make it a little funny. But so yeah, that was just always something that I questioned. I'm like, why are we talking about the brother of somebody and not talking about this dude by his name?
I'm Spider-Man then.
God saves the Jaredites from the chaos and commands them to build barges they'd use to cross the ocean, where God had a promised land waiting for them. The brother of Jared wrote that the barges were tight like unto the ark of Noah. But before they set out on their grand adventure, they ran into a problem. The brother of Jared cried unto the Lord, saying, Behold, O Lord, in the barges there is no light. Whither shall we steer? Wilt thou suffer that we shall cross this great water in darkness? God's response:
that was his main concern, was no light. Again, they're building essentially wooden submarines. These little wooden things that are supposed to have a door in them that is going to be watertight. And this time with moving parts, a door that opens and closes and so on, but it's watertight. And there's so many other issues of how are we carrying food for all the animals that we're supposed to have in these barges and the families, and what do we do with the waste of those things? And so again, it's just, there's all kinds of problems, and light is the concern, the main concern.
Is, what will ye that I should do, that ye may have light in your vessels? This whole story of the brother of Jared and his solution to this problem has been mocked by critics of our faith for years. In the 90s, one critic wrote simply, the words patently ridiculous seem too kind. But further study has shown that what the brother...
Well, it's true. I mean, beyond it's not this part. It's not the issue of the light. Those are not the things that opponents of Mormonism have mocked for years. I mean, people have probably talked about, God's finger touched the rocks and they glowed and so on and so forth. It's an important thing to remember that this is the manner in which these rocks began to shine, as they were touched by the finger of God and that made them shine. But again, there are so many other issues with these barges that the light inside of them is not the key thing that we are focusing on when we comment on these things.
What Jared did next might not be so patently ridiculous after all, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video.
That was a really long introduction.
So let's cut right to it. What does the brother of Jared do? He goes up a mountain and did molten out of a rock 16 small stones, and they were white and clear.
How did he molten out of a rock? I mean, what kind of torches or things was he using to molten 16 small stones out of a rock? Acetylene. What are we dealing with here?
He takes them to the top of the mountain and cries once again to the Lord and says, Touch these stones, O Lord, with thy finger, and prepare them that they may shine forth in darkness. And they shall shine forth unto us in the vessels which we have prepared, that we may have light while we cross the sea. And that's exactly what happens. Shining stones. That's what we're dealing with here. It seems totally random, a product of the brother of Jared's imagination, or worse, a product of Joseph Smith's imagination.
Bingo. Product of Joseph Smith, because again, these are not just shining stones. These are stones that were touched by God that were then caused to shine. Remember, they're key thing, because he's going to start going to a place that does not connect.
Now, you'll remember that the brother of Jared compared his barges in at least one way to Noah's Ark. So let's go back and read a bit more about Noah's Ark. Genesis 6:16 contains instructions from the Lord to Noah. A window shalt thou make in the ark. The word window here is translated from the Hebrew word sohar. In Genesis 8:6 we get another window reference. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. Curiously, this window is translated from the word shalom instead of sohar. If you look up shalom in Strong's Concordance of the Bible, you find one meaning. It's a window. But if you look up sohar, you get multiple meanings. One definition is simply a light, stemming from...
Okay, look at what it says here. It doesn't just say a light, i.e. window. Dual, double light, noon, midday, noon, window. Okay, so there's a couple of places in here where it says window. Now, granted, when you look up sohar and how it's used, it's only used one time in the Bible as a window. But there's a purpose, and I'll get to that.
Sehar, which can mean to glisten. In the Midrash Rabbah, which is essentially ancient Jewish commentary on the first 5 books of our Old Testament, one rabbi explained Sohar to be a precious stone. During the whole time that Noah was in the ark, he did not require the light of the sun by day or the light of the moon by night, but he had a polished gem which he hung up. When it was dim, he knew that it was day, and when it shone, he knew that it was night. In the Babylonian Talmud, in reference to Sohar, another rabbi commented, "The Holy One, blessed be he, instructed Noah, set therein precious stones and jewels, so that they may give thee light, bright as the noon." One book about ancient Jewish folk tradition mentions that in the case of the Sohar, it is said that the glowing jewel was handed down by Adam and Eve to their son Seth, and that it subsequently reached Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and of course, Noah. So when God told Noah, "Put the Sohar in the ark," Noah knew exactly what he meant, and thus Noah hung the Sohar from a beam in the ark, where it illuminated the ark.
Okay, now notice we went from midrash teachings of ancient rabbis, a couple, and now we're talking about a dude reimagining the Bible. So again, we're not really... we have had thousands of years of Hebrew and biblical scholarship, and there's not a whole lot of talk about this window being a shining stone. Very little, very, very little talk about this window being a shining stone. If this were a shining stone, we would probably see a whole lot more reference to that through the thousands of years of biblical study that has been happening. But it doesn't. And again, I'm going to get to the reason why I think, and again, I'm not the scholar, so I'm just giving you my idea of what this looks like to me, and you can run with that. But again, very little talk of in thousands of years that this is not a actual hole in the top of the ark as in a window, as much as a shiny stone.
Again, we know from Ether 6 that the brother of Jared is already comparing his barges to Noah's Ark. So when you ask yourself where he gets this radical idea to use illuminated stones as a light source, he very well may still be following the pattern set by Noah. In that context, it makes perfect sense. Now,
but if it were a shining stone from Noah, or Adam and Eve, or handed down from person to person, nowhere do you see them going and saying, "God, put your finger on this and make it shiny." Nowhere do you see that they went and molten out of a rock to get this other rock in order for God to make it shiny. So it's a completely different thing. The two really do not coincide with each other at all.
Now, I'm not saying that this proves the Book of Mormon is true, but what are the chances?
It's your implication.
That this was just another one of Joseph Smith's lucky guesses.
R2 says the chances are 725 to 1.
But again, remember, it could be a lucky guess. It could be, but again, they don't connect. They really don't. You're taking and comparing, at least at this point, you're comparing oranges to nectarines. Somewhat similar, but they don't really connect. And again, we never look at a prophet isn't proven by the few things he gets right amid the hundreds of things that he got wrong. One thing wrong, according to the Bible, according to Deuteronomy, that a prophet gets wrong, and he is a false prophet. Anyone who presumes to speak in the name of the Lord and doesn't do it right, you don't fear that man. That man is a false prophet and should be put to death, according to the Old Testament. So again, we're not going, oh well, Joseph Smith got these few little things right, and if we can twist this and look at it this way from this angle underneath the full moon, then maybe it's this. No, again, there are so many other problems with the Jaredite barges that the light inside is not even a real concern. I mean, yeah, it sounds like a made-up story. Dude goes with some kind of technology to molten out of a rock 16 little smaller shiny rocks, or not yet shiny rocks. Ask God to touch them. He makes them shiny. Boom, light within all these barges. Right? Not quite the same thing as Noah's Ark. I mean, he's got like 10 seconds left of things to say.
Or is it realistic to believe that he learned about this concept from an outside source? Scholar Hugh Nibley observed that the few sources that might have been available to the prophet were obscure and garbled accounts in texts that not half a dozen men in the world could read. Of course, you're free to believe as you see fit. I just thought this was some fun, interesting stuff that I thought I'd pass along. We're done here. Check out the stuff in the description for more info on this topic.
No, this isn't just fun, interesting stuff that he thought he would pass along. This is the faith and belief section. This is the implication that they are proving to you that the things of the Book of Mormon that most people say are wrong are true. It really is not just some interesting little stuff that I thought I'd pass along. This is him trying to defend the validity of the Book of Mormon, and it cannot be done. Now let's go back and talk about the Zohar before we wrap it up. The word was a light, i.e. window. What were the other things? I can't remember everything else that it said. A light, midday, noonday sun, right? A window. Now, apparently the window was put in the top of the ark. And where Zohar is used is in the place where it's giving the description and giving the instructions on how to build the ark. So the word Zohar was used to say this is where you put the window to provide light to the inside of the ark. You're going to put it where the noonday sun would be to shine in. And that's why the word Zohar is used, is to give Noah the instruction on where to put the window. And then the word Chalon is used later because it is in reference to just opening the window. It's not the instruction being given. It is just the description of what he did. So I would say, and again, I would look at thousands of years of biblical scholarship that has never said this was a dangling shiny stone from the top of the ark. There was a hole put in the ark, which is a window, and maybe it was covered with something or whatever because he had to open it. But there was a hole put in to provide light. And that's why the word Zohar was there. It was a skylight, and that's what it's actually translated as in the ESV. It is translated as skylight. It is there to provide light to the inside of the boat. It's not a shiny stone. It's a hole in the top of the boat to provide light from the midday sun. That's what it is. It is not. So again, Joseph didn't get any of this right. And again, we could go on and on and on about the other problems with the Jaredite barges, but it's pointless. It was a figment of Joseph Smith's imagination. It was made up by him. It was one of his grand stories that he told his entire life. And he couldn't even come up with a name for the dude. He was just the brother of Jared. Right? Ridiculous. So, there you go, guys. I hope this was helpful. Come at me with your comments, whatever. Let me know. Again, any of this stuff I could be wrong on. I'm not a Hebrew scholar. But this is the commonsensical breakdown of what this is what we're looking at. It's not a shiny stone dangling from the top. It's a skylight. So I hope it was helpful. I hope you guys enjoyed the this week's episode. And, stick around. Come back tomorrow for our false teacher of the week, which is going to be my old friend Sean McCraney. So stay tuned for that. And as always, preach the gospel at all times. Use words. They're necessary. Until next week, Soli Deo Gloria.